DOOPeros y DOOPeros, without further ado, on the DOOP By The River guest line. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we are here. We are at the CCL, the day we have all been waiting for. And of course, guys, you know me. I can look into Saprissa as much as I can, but I don't know too much about Deportivo Saprissa. So without further ado, on DOOP By The River, guys, we have a really special guest who's going to break it all down with us here today. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Eddie, aka CRC Futbol. Eddie, what is going on? How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely, man. We're gonna get right to it, talking about all the stuff with CCL. But Eddie, to start off, man, I want people to get to know who Eddie is. Obviously, Jonathan Tannenwald threw the bomb on all of us Union fans. Who is Eddie, or also better known, CRC Futbol, or Eddie from Brooklyn?
Yeah, so my guess soccer career, as you can call it, if you can. It started basically. I wrote for Bleacher Report. I covered MLS for about a couple years,
Cool.
and while I was doing that, I worked as a senior analyst for Opta Sports. This was kind of back in the day when everybody manually collected all those, statistics that people kind of look at these days, and it kind of, I guess, got my brain going as to how I would watch games and how I would analyze games and cover games. And I was really into MLS and Liga MX at that point. Got a little bit into Ecuadorian soccer as I started covering them on the off season. But when basically I got let go because they shut the office down, my love for, I guess, the data game, it was still there. And I kind of looked at my own country and realized, you know what, nobody's really covering Costa Rican soccer, and this is my passion. So I kind of blended the two. And, I've basically been covering the Costa Rican league kind of the same way that I used to cover MLS and Liga MX, and using, kind of like my coaching experience and my data collection experience to bring a different angle and a different perspective to a league that nobody really covers in English.
That is a great story. I mean, it's crazy because this in today's sports, like it's all about it's all about that. It's all about analytics, and you're kind of bringing this to a league that really doesn't get a lot of recognition, like you said, especially English speaking content. That is really, I mean, it's kind of relate as well. I only got into the Union because obviously being Colombian American, I love it. I love soccer. It's in my blood. I love Philly sports, and the Union is something that we need to be big here in Philadelphia. So I can definitely connect with that. But that's definitely a great story, man. And listen, we need more people like you. We need the more the recognition, especially for CCL. Us MLS people who cover the MLS. We don't know a lot about the Liga and Costa Rica. So that is definitely awesome. Let's go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to cut you off, but I will say there is a funny story about CCL in those Opta offices. So you'll notice a lot of people these days, they'll jokingly tweet out the hashtag CCL Fever. That started with us at Opta because when we worked at Opta, we worked in the same offices as the MLS digital people. Okay. And we're there, we're collecting the data for these games, but we would also do those CCL games way back in the day. We're talking about like two El Salvadorian teams playing each other like randomly on a Wednesday night at 10 p.m. And it was a joke. And it's like, man, I gotta collect this data. I got that fever. It's that CCL fever. That was us. We started that because we were the ones that were staying up watching those games that nobody cared about, because that's what we did.
Ladies and gentlemen, here on DOOP By The River, we drop history bombs on you straight from Eddie right there. That is awesome. It wasn't Andrew Wiebe. It was Eddie and his group back in the day.
We started that.
They started. It's like the Drake meme. None of this was here until we got here. I love it. Awesome, man. All right, well let's get into your to what you covered most and what you know best about, and that is football costarricense. Obviously, for us here in Philadelphia, this is going to be our first CCL experience. So I mean, I'm not going to speak for most Union fans, but for me personally, Eddie, I'm here for the experience. I never in 2010 when the Union became a club, I never imagined the day that they would be in this spot here. It will come next Wednesday. I'm just going to take in the moment. It's going to be a moment that I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life because it's the first CCL. But on the other side, we have a very historical club. You're an hincha. You're a fan of Deportivo Saprissa. This is a very decorated club in Costa Rica. Kirchin in the press conference after the draw, I mean, he said it himself. He actually played against Deportivo Saprissa when he was a member of the Chicago Fire in his playing days. This is going to be a tough challenge simply because we all know the difficulty with the MLS clubs facing off against a lot of these Central American Liga MX teams, man. But to start off with. Why do you believe the MLS struggles so much in CCL?
I think early on, a lot of it had to do with how seriously they took the competition. I think there was a lot of player rotation, and guys like was it Dominic Kinnear? I believe he used to coach like the Houston Dynamo back in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah. Yep.
That dude could not give two bleeps about CCL,
Wow.
and he was kind of the old guard. I think clubs like Atlanta United and watching them what they were able to do against like Herediano, there's a shift now. LAFC, like this competition matters, but there is still this, I guess, with Saprissa specifically. When there's an MLS matchup, Saprissa more often than not got the better of those MLS teams. It's actually clubs like America that would eliminate us. I would say last year losing to Montreal was kind of the first time I remember Saprissa getting eliminated by an MLS club, and they didn't even lose the game. They lost on the tiebreaker because they drew both games,
That's rough.
and outplayed Montreal in both games. They just didn't get the away goal they needed. But a lot of it did have to do with La Cueva and MLS teams having to play in that environment. For American soccer fans, having to play Costa Rica in the qualifiers in that stadium, you could ask anybody, they would prefer playing in the Azteca than in La Cueva, because La Cueva, it's a very small, intimate stadium, but still seats 30,000 people that feel like they're on top of you. And, when they say the stadium shakes, and you can feel it underneath you, like the locker rooms, the dressing rooms for the visiting team is underneath La Barra Brava. And that's like, it's a daunting experience because you can feel all 30,000 people on top of you. This time around, obviously in a pandemic, that's not going to be the case.
I was going to
So
ask you, are there fans in stands right now, or?
no, so right now there's still no fans, and
Okay.
they're talking about how they're going to bring them back in by the end of the season, but it's not going to be. You'll have more fans in Philly than I will in Costa Rica. Like
Yeah.
that's to me, and it's kind of crazy because the way Costa Rica handled the pandemic was fantastic,
Right.
and kind of comparing it to how New York City even did it. They're ahead of the game in that, but with that means no fans, so you kind of lose that advantage that historically you always got.
Okay. That's something we should be considering for sure. I mean, listen, I this is the first time I've heard of La Cueva. I've heard of like the atmospheres, not just in Costa Rica, but Central America as a whole. Like that's another reason why U.S. struggles down there. Not just the MLS, but U.S. men's national team struggles in Central America. The environment is incredible. And one thing I can't. I mean, I wish we had fans in the stands down there because a lot of my Philly sports fans who don't really know soccer, I wanted them to see that because a lot of the American sports fans don't understand what soccer is outside of America. And cultures like Central America really is like it signifies what it really is to a lot of people around the world. But that definitely something we'll look for. I mean, the home field advantage, that's something that, especially Saprissa have been able to capitalize on. So it should be interesting. So what's been going on with Saprissa? What have they? I know they're midway in their season. I'm hearing they're going through like a retool season. What's been going on with Saprissa so far?
Man, it's been a roller coaster year, to be honest. I think Alajuela won the title last year, and that was sort of
And they're
expected.
first
But
now, right? If I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
they're top of the table. They're flying high, and I think they're clearly the class of Costa Rica right now.
Really?
And while them winning the title was expected, what I think wasn't expected, just as a Costa Rican covering the league, was how muted Saprissa was in their response to that. So normally, your biggest rival wins their first title in 7 years. That's going to trigger a response to make sure that it's not a back-to-back campaign, or they're
Right.
not set up to go forward. And Saprissa went the route of, obviously they sold Ugalde on to City Football Group, and that needed to happen. And we're all really excited about that as Costa Ricans. But to see the lack of movement in the transfer window, where they basically only brought back Ariel Rodriguez, who's a striker, and they kind of relied more on Daniel Colindres, who they brought in last year, and then basically they said, hey, these academy kids, this is the future, and they announced like 10 signings from the academy, and then you look at the squad and it's like, all right, this squad wasn't good enough last year, it's worse now. So what are you really trying to compete for a title? And the results kind of bared out. So they gave Walter Centeno, a pretty bare roster, and then he loses in 1 week to Alajuela twice. Not badly. They actually competed pretty well, but loses to them twice, and he gets fired. And they bring back, an old manager, Roy Myers, who coached like a decade ago, won like one league title, but won like 40% of his games in like 3 seasons.
Right.
And it's been a roller coaster year where they'll look good for about a week and then they go 6 games without 3 points. And it's because of the roster, and you can kind of see that the front office really didn't give them, that many tools to play with. And it makes me wonder, was this entire season a wash, and are they looking to something months from now, or do they actually believe in this roster? Because if that's the case, that concerns me more.
Let me ask you. So these signings that you guys did, were they like national players, or were they like international signings?
No, I mean, it was our players. Ariel Rodriguez was a guy that we brought back on loan in 2018
Gotcha.
because he kind of wanted to get back on the World Cup radar, but he was playing overseas in, I think, Thailand or Vietnam, it might have been. And then he came back, and it's kind of like this weird back and forth between some players like Rodriguez and Colindres, where they go to these random Asian countries. It's not even like Korea, where like Urenia went or where Moya went. It's like these random Asian nations, but then they're like bola de ping pong. They're like back and forth, back and forth. And now they're like fully here, but Alajuela is signing guys like Marcel Hernandez, and they're bringing back Brian Ruiz, and it's a different level of signing, and they're kind of relying more on the youth and what's supposed to be the next generation of talent, which Saprissa does have. Of all the clubs, they're the one club that you should believe when they say, hey, we got a new crop of talent coming up, and this is the generation that we're relying on, because they've done it from Keylor Navas onward to Manfred Ugarte. So they have the track record.
Right.
It hasn't bared out that way this season, and that is, it's showing in the table.
It's so funny hearing you say, like, what Saprissa's been going through over the off season and going into the season. It kind of feels like the Union right now. Like, there's a group of Union fans right now who are kind of frustrated with the club, because we see other clubs in our league getting better. I mean, the MLS Cup champ, the Columbus Crew, literally got better. And there's a group of Union fans who are they want signings. And right now it is tough. I mean, like we just talked about, there is a global pandemic. And I mean, you live in America too. The visa situation is difficult as it is, and the Union have been struggling trying to sign players that they actually want, because Ernst wants to find players in Europe, in South America, and it's tough to get those guys those visas. And that's where the Union have been running into issues. We just signed a midfielder who has an American passport. He's half German, half American, and we only were able to get him in here now because he has that American. He was born in America. So that's something we have been running into, and it's just funny. Like we kind of have like the similar build here. We've been building a lot. I mean, I'm sure you heard. Living in New York, we've been building with the kids as well. We've been getting a lot of kids in this area too, and we're kind of hoping that in the future as well, kind of like Saprissa, that we can be that club as well with a bunch of kids. It's tough to sell on a fan base, I know, but like for me, only because I've seen this in other sports. I'm a big Sixers fan as well. I lived through the process years, seeing young kids grow up, develop. It's a lot of fun for me, so it is definitely interesting, and I can relate with the Saprissa fans on that one, man. It's definitely rough.
It's actually funny because the more conversations I have with Union fans, kind of the better I feel, because I have heard that a lot. Like, I'm not sold on this roster. I don't believe in this roster. We're gonna play like 16-year-old kids, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe we have a chance, because I wasn't buying Saprissa's chances until I started having conversations with Union fans. Now, mind you, I live in New York, so I kind of been through the Red Bulls kind of thing and
Right.
interacted with Union fans there. Y'all seemed already a little bit fatalistic,
Mhm.
So I don't know how much of that I'm buying to kind of build in my optimism, but it's definitely, there's like a sense among Union fans that I feel where you guys aren't as confident as I felt you should have been after the draw, and it gives me that little bit of hope. Atlanta United fans are like completely the opposite, by the way. Like, because I have to speak to them about the Alajuelense thing, and I'm like, I hate Alajuelense. That's my rival club. But
I
even
imagine.
then, I have to tell them like, hey guys, like you're in trouble. And they're like, no, 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 we invented soccer, and it's just like this completely different outlook. It's incredible.
I appreciate that. That was a good one. No, I mean, I think I honestly for them, Eddie, I think that Joseph Martinez coming back like brings this spirit to them, and I hear it too. Like they think they're gonna make the MLS Cup again because of Josef's health. I mean, listen, you don't know what Josef's gonna look like coming back. That was a serious injury. He was out for a whole year, so I mean, we'll see. But that not definitely is gonna be a tough matchup for sure. And same for us. I mean, I think for me. Like I said, I'm just here for the experience. I'm not expecting to beat Saprissa, but this again, like we just talked about, we have a lot of young kids, and playing in a CCL match against a club like Saprissa, that is the ultimate learning experience. So I just want them to go in there, give it their all. Jim usually gets these teams ready in tournament-like situations, but obviously CCL is a completely different monster. So I think for us, it's just a good learning experience, and hopefully, it's a building block for the MLS season. But yeah, I don't think I'm on the same way with the most Union fans. I don't have much expectations in the CCL. It's our first one too, so we'll see, man. We'll
Yeah, I
see.
think like for Saprissa, it helps that they have that experience, right? Like a
Right.
lot of the players that they're relying on are pushing the wrong side of 30, especially in midfield. You know, they have like three guys in Barantes, Angulo, and who am I thinking about? Mariano Torres, the Argentine. Those are like that's their engine. And I feel
So,
like
so you guys have Kendall Watson?
yeah, we have Watson, and you know what?
It's crazy.
He actually in the league he's not bad. I saw him
Right.
yesterday against Mexico in the national team, and he was an unmitigated disaster. And that's a different conversation for me as a Tico because that to me is a higher level. But for the league in Costa Rica, he's pretty solid. I still feel like he could have played at a level in MLS, and I feel like he could have still
Right.
been useful in MLS. I guess for whatever reason, he wanted to come back home to Costa Rica, and
Don't
he,
blame
he
him.
did he did help our defense a lot because that was an area that I was worried about. We signed a guy Espindola from Argentina, and he didn't look the part to me. So I feel like
Yeah.
Watson's experience, the midfield's experience, and then, we got Bolaños, who MLS fans should remember from his time at the Whitecaps. He's still out there on the wing. So there's a lot of experience, which if you guys play kids against them, that could be an advantage for Saprissa. But, going into it, I saw that the Union, you guys were like shield winners. So I was a little bit more concerned. I didn't realize that there was like this huge offseason overhaul that you guys were going through.
Yeah. Well, first on Kendall, I was gonna say it was tough for him. I don't know. I'm sure you followed the end of his MLS career, but he was on some bad backlines like Vancouver, like
Yeah.
and Cincinnati. That's just tough. I mean, Kendall's good, but like, I mean, he's not like he's not like a Kalidou Koulibaly. So that was just really rough. And then on to the Union overhaul point, really what it was that they lost Mark McKenzie and Brandon Aronson, two big young pieces of that team from last year, and that's kind of why we have that overhaul, two key pieces. So we'll see how they can bounce back from that. Eddie, I wanted to know how is this like tactically? How is this team built? What is the strengths? How does Saprissa kill their opponents?
So they under Centeno were very predictable. It was always the same 4-3-3, and you can count on like the same three substitutes. With Roy Myers now, the system is somewhat the same. It's really I would say more of a 4-2-3-1, where they're kind of relying on sometimes a double pivot of Torres and Angulo to break
Okay.
teams down, which is very attack minded.
Right.
But when Barantes is healthy, you can kind of count on Barantes to kind of swap in and out with David Guzman.
Okay.
So you'll have like a true holding mid and more of an eight, and then like Angulo in front. The strength really comes on the wings when And I would say when Sinclair was playing. So Sinclair was the backup striker. I think he did some time in USL, if I'm not mistaken. But
Mm.
he's a 24-year-old kid that stepped in when Ariel Rodriguez got hurt, and his style really fit Colindres and Bolaños' style on the wings, where he's less of a poacher like Ariel Rodriguez is, and he's going to get his wingers involved a little bit more. So when he was playing, you kind of saw the strengths that Costa Rica used to have, where they would kill you with Bolaños and Colindres on the wings. They like their 1v1 matchups. They would throw those third man runs into the box, and that's how they would basically break teams down. And having Watson back there, basically clearing everything forward in transition is pretty helpful. So that's
Yeah.
that's basically the shape and the system that you can rely on. With Rodriguez coming back in, it feels a little bit more cross happy and hopeful in their attack. So if Rodriguez starts, you can expect more of a crossing attack. If it's Sinclair, you can expect more dynamism, 1v1 matchups on the wing, and trying to create overloads in transition. So those are kind of like the two styles that they can play.
Man, that gets me a little nervous too. We didn't talk about it as well. There's been some injury concerns with the Union as well. I don't even know who the heck we're gonna put out there. We have a lot of starters that have been putting on that injury list there, so it should be interesting there. But I mean, let's get right to the nitty gritty, Eddie. Two legs, it's April 7th, April 14th. What do you see happening here, man? In both legs.
A month ago, or even when the draw came out, I thought it was a surefire loss. I had zero hope. I did not think Saprissa would show well. I thought very easily eliminated, if not embarrassed, eliminated the way that we typically were against Mexican clubs. Having had probably now my fourth conversation with somebody from the Union, I think we have a shot. I really do think the fact that you guys, nobody that I've spoken to, can give me a lineup, and I keep hearing the thought of a 16-year-old kid starting, and I think to myself, like, you know what? This is their first go around. They're relying on teenagers. They have to fly to Costa Rica and still play in Costa Rica. I think if Costa Rica wins if Saprissa wins the first leg, which I think they should, but they keep a clean sheet, I think Saprissa advances. I really do. I've started, maybe it's my fandom, but I've started to talk myself into it based off of the conversations with Union fans. You guys have given me hope. So I'm going to just put my name on it. I say Saprissa advances.
I will say, depending on whoever is the lineup for the Union, if you guys, for whatever reason, overlook the Union, I feel like we will make you pay for it. That's the only thing I will say. Like I mentioned, Jim knows how to get his team prepared in tournament-like situations. They always do well in playoffs or cups like this. And if the system that the Union run to, it's a German-based system. Obviously, our athletic director it comes from the German soccer federation. Essentially, he was part of Hoffenheim, RB Leipzig, RB Salzburg, and we have this 4-4-2 diamond with the high press, and it's a system that can work out. And if you fall into the pressure, if you overlook us, and we can make you commit to mistakes. So if you guys do overlook us, I do believe we may have a chance. I'm waiting for those crazy CCL stories. You always hear about those crazy CCL stories, these MLS teams going down to Central America and the Caribbean. Will the Saprissa fans find a way to put laxatives in the Union food or something like that? Something I'm waiting for something crazy.
You hear stories like that a lot. I mean, my favorite CCL story I remember analyzing this game was when
Oh yeah,
Cruz
give it
Azul
to
and
us, Eddie. Give
Alajuela,
it to us.
they just had a full out brawl. And I remember before the cameras cut out while I was analyzing this game, some dude just went straight Liu Kang into an Alajuela player inside of goal.
Oh my
And
God.
and then the cameras just cut. And I was like, what is going on? But no, like the Ministry of Health in Costa Rica is pretty stringent on their rules, and the clubs for their part, they've done a really good job of continuing to communicate the message to the fans, like, look, stay home, stay away, because if you come out, we don't play. They almost canceled the final back in late June when they came back from the pandemic, And this is when Saprissa was on their run, and they were going to beat Alajuela. Eventually, they did to win the title. And I remember I almost cried because I thought that the season was over and we were this close to winning our 35th title. So they've done a really good job of communicating to the fans, like, look, stay away, stay home. Don't get involved in any of this because you're going to impact our ability to play. And the league itself has done a really good job of staying on top of the clubs. Like,
That's good.
Saprissa has been fined multiple times for celebrating a goal too close to each other and high-fiving each other. Like, they've been fined multiple times for that. So it when I say, like, the COVID rules in Costa Rica are serious, they're pretty serious. And I wish, we could have done the same here.
Yes.
But, at least that the union are going into a very nice, clean, safe, healthy environment.
Right.
And given where we are, that's great. But again, it just kills our advantage.
I mean, look, I really appreciate that because for me, player safety is at the utmost importance, and I really do appreciate that Costa Rica is doing all the precautionary, things that they need to do to have these type of tournaments here, man. So what do you see happening? What score lines happening in these legs?
Give me 2-0 in Costa Rica, which is the only score line where I see Saprissa can really go back to Philly and probably lose 2-1. And they go through. They go through on that.
Okay. Listen, I could very much see that happening. Eddie, any chance we will see Eddie make a debut at Subaru Park rooting on Saprissa?
Man, my work schedule is tough.
I hear you, brother. I hear you.
I can't. I've wanted to go to the Philly area a few times because I remember even when Costa Rica was playing the U.S. in the Gold Cup, and I believe one of the knockout games was in the Eagles Stadium. I was like, man, nice. I can make that trip, but it's a little bit difficult. I think I'm maybe a year away from coming back to a stadium.
I know. Hey, listen, definitely take your time, man. I will say, on behalf of a lot of Union fans, man, you are always welcome down here in Philly. Even if you want to catch us a Union game, man, definitely. You already have my contact info. Definitely hit us up. You're more than welcome down here, my brother. But it should be interesting how that game's going to look like. Obviously, I would expect fans to, like, the opposing fans to be in their corner where we keep the away team fans. But I mean, I'm not going to expect any Saprissa fans in the stadium on April 14th. But I will definitely be down there. But it should be a lot of fun. Should be very interesting. I saw, even seeing, like, Eddie, I saw, like, the patches, like the CCL patches on the Uni jerseys, and I was like, woo, it's happening. It's happening. Yeah. We're good. We're getting there.
Forget it. Once you're in now, like, you're gonna want it every single year. It's for a lot of, like, even American soccer fans. Like, I know it's still not a big deal, but once you catch CCL fever, you that's it. You addicted to it.
But the thing is, for a lot of American sports fans, they know UEFA Champions League is a big deal. I mean, like, why wouldn't we think the same for CCL?
It's a bit myopic, I believe. This is my viewpoint. I wouldn't even go general sports fans. I will just say American soccer fans. And I think this also holds true for Mexican soccer fans. We are looked at as inferior in Central America and the Caribbean. And when you reshape the entire competition now to have a special group phase where you're going to get your dosage of MLS versus Liga MX, and then, hey, you Central American teams, you figure yourselves out, and then we'll invite like 3 of you to the party later. It's a very myopic viewpoint that the North American soccer community has on us. And, it bears out in the way that the competition keeps getting restructured. We're now in the knockout rounds. I'll give you an example. A couple years ago, if you won the league in Costa Rica, you were guaranteed to make the knockouts of the CCL, period.
Okay.
Now we have to qualify through the CONCACAF League. We're not automatically invited.
Wow.
So you have a champion like Saprissa who's been to a FIFA Club World Cup, who played Liverpool, who finished third, who has this prestige, has this history. We're not automatically invited. We're only in this because we had to qualify for it. And then you'll have clubs, MLS clubs like in Canada, play 2 games in the Canadian Cup, they get an automatic bid. So Things are starting to shift towards the obsession for North America, and Canada starting to get involved in it a little bit. And we in Central America, we're just like, we're still here, we're still scrapping. Like Ronnie Dangerfield, we get no respect. That's basically what it is.
Is that how Real Steli made it into this CCL?
Yeah, so it's a weird thing because if you make the quarters, there's 8 teams, but only 6 go. So as long as you're not the worst of the 8 teams based on some weird point accumulation on your results from the previous rounds, then you're in.
Okay.
So they took 6. So even if you don't have to win the whole league, that kind of has become more of a pride thing. And Costa Rica has won it 3 years in a row now, Heredia, Saprissa, and then Alajuela this year. So it's more of a pride of Central America thing where it kind of feels like our own little Champions League. So we don't have to really win it, but we want to, and that allows the competition to have a little bit more, I guess, intensity. But it's still a weird qualification process, and that's how you get clubs like Real Esteli who make it.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Eddie. When I saw Real Esteli, I was like, un club de Nicaragua. Wait, what? When was the last time it's been a while, right? Since Nicaragua.
You know what? It has been, well, maybe not for Real Esteli. I feel like I've seen them before, but I think they eliminated, if I'm not mistaken, I think they eliminated Herediano in the round of 16, and that we call the fracaso because Heredia is one of the big 3, and they're not in this competition, and they should be.
Wow.
And it's it's because of this little CONCACAF league that they made us kind of kill each other in.
So Columbus shouldn't overlook Esteli then?
No, I think Columbus will be fine. They got Luis Diaz, so they'll be all right.
Awesome. Listen, Eddie, I appreciate you coming on here, man. I feel much more prepared for this match, honestly, just getting familiarized with Saprissa. But before we head out, Eddie, where can people find you, man? Because I think what you're doing is absolutely beautiful. We need more English content creators covering all these Latino American leagues. So where can people find you, man?
Best place to find me is on Twitter at CRC Futbol, the Spanish spelling Futbol. I have a blog where I randomly write. I don't like to write, like the mundane stuff that a lot of people will do daily. When I get to feel like I want to write something, I put it on paper, and those typically tend to be my best pieces. Right. But you follow my Twitter account, assuming I'm sober and you're not coming at me in my mentions. I do a lot of content and analysis there. I'll cover games. I'll give threads. Saprissa is playing tonight at 10 p.m. So I plan to cover that game tonight.
All right, that's
then. If you ever want to find out about random players, up and coming players, random formations for a team like Grecia or Limon that you never heard of, I'm the place to come to on Twitter.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome. When are we gonna get that Tico podcast started?
Yeah, you know what? People have been kind of coming at me for podcasts. I think I got 2 people right now with offers, and I used to do one experimentally with my son, who's like 12, going on 13 now. It was called Cereal About Soccer, where we would talk about cereal, and then we would talk about soccer because we really love cereal. I kind of want to bring that back. The more I think about it, I just got to find the time with my work schedule, man. My work schedule is crazy.
I hear you, man. It's definitely tough. Well, listen, Eddie, I will say if you ever need help with the podcast, I mean, obviously I can't help you much with the Tico stuff, but if you ever need help with the podcast, I'll be more happy to help you, man. And seriously, thank you for coming on here today, Eddie.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie, CRC Futbol.